بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Okay, so inshallah we will go over the last two conditions of validity of the salah. That's facing al-Qibla and the Niyyah, intention. So he said that Imam Qudamah rahimahullah said الشرط الخامس استقبال القبلة. The fifth condition is facing the Qibla. He said إلا في النافلة على الراحلة للمسافر فإنه يصلي حيث كان وجهه. Except in the supererogatory prayers, the nafila prayer, while riding, the traveler prays in whichever direction he is facing. So when you're praying any nafila or any optional supererogatory sunnah prayer, you could do this while you're riding to whichever direction you're going. And this was reported by Bukhari and Muslim from Amr ibn Rabi'ah. He said that he saw the Prophet ﷺ pray while riding in the direction that he was going. And then he said, وَالْعَاجِزُ عَنِ الْإِسْتِقْبَالِ لِخَوْفٍ أَوْ غَيْرِهِ فَيُصَلِّي كَيْفَمَا أَمْكَنَهُ. One who is incapable of facing the Qibla out of fear or for some other reason may pray in whichever direction he can. العاجز عن الاستقبال. If you are unable to face the Qibla, then you pray to whichever direction. So if you're riding and you're unable to face the Qibla, you're riding a bus and you're unable to face the Qibla and they would not stop, the bus for you. Or you're riding a plane and you're unable to face the Qibla, then you pray in your seat to whichever direction you're going.
You make that up?
You
make that up later?
You do not make this up later. It is valid, complete, done. وَمَا عَدَاهُمَا فَلَا تَصِحُّ صَلَاتُهُ إِلَّا مُسْتَقْبِلَ الْقِبْلَةِ. For all others, their prayer is invalid unless they are facing the Kaaba, the Qibla. فإن كان قريبا من الكعبة, if he is near the Kaaba, he must pray exactly towards it. وإن كان بعيدا فإلى جهتها, and if he is far, then towards its direction. So you're commanded to pray towards the direction of the Kaaba. There is, usually if you look for the easier position in our deen, you'll find them to be traceable to the Prophet ﷺ. And that is not sort of all the time. It's not like a rule that never fails, but that is hukm aghlabi. That is, generally speaking, most of the time, that's the case. So the Prophet ﷺ said, مَا بَيْنَ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ قِبْلَةٌ. Between the east and the west is Qibla. This was said to the Sahaba in Medina, correct? And he said this to the Sahaba in Medina because Medina is north of Mecca. He was saying to the Sahaba in Medina, as long as you're praying towards the south, you're fine. Just avoid east and west. Don't pray to the east. Your Kaaba is south. Don't pray to the east. Don't pray to the west, and you'll be fine. Well, certainly don't pray to the north. But he meant to say, just make the east on your right, the west on your left, and just pray. So this meticulousness, Ibn Rajab says that this meticulousness in identifying the Qibla is not the way of the Salaf. They used to have more flexibility. And then when the scholars later came and said that you have to exactly identify where the Qibla is, they started to, he said, فَأَوْرَثَهُمْ ذَلِكَ شَكًّا فِي حَالِ سَلَفِ أُمَّتِهِمْ. This caused them doubt about the Salaf, about the Sahaba, about the Tabi'een. They were building masajid, that did not face the Qibla. And some of them said, we must, demolish those masajid and rebuild them facing the Qibla. And he said that this is an innovation a form of injustice. It's a form of dhulm to do this, because that confuses the people, creates, fitan, and basically causes people to doubt the condition of the righteous predecessors, the Sahaba and the Tabi'in and so on. So it is more lenient than most of us, more flexible than most of us think. Now the Hanafis, Malikis, and Hanbalis said if you're far, you need to face the direction. The Shafi'is, according to the authorized view in their madhab, said if you're far, you still need to hit the Kaaba, meaning that you have to exert the maximum effort to be able to hit the Kaaba. In another Shafi'i position, they said it is the direction. Ibn Taymiyyah says, rahimahullah, that all of this disagreement is a disagreement of form, not a disagreement of meaning. Because at the end of the day, all of them accept the prayer of a long line that will certainly, if you have a long straight line that is longer than one of the limbs of the Kaaba, then certainly some of you will not be facing the Kaaba. Because if this is the Kaaba here, okay, and I am here in wherever I am here in the Sham, and I have a large masjid with a long line like this, we will be praying towards this direction. Unless we cause a little bit of curvature, even if it is the slightest curvature, we will not be all praying towards the Kaaba. People on the ends here will be praying not towards the Kaaba. So they all agree that this is permissible. So it's a disagreement of form and not a disagreement of meaning. But we have reports from Imam Ahmad that are very, very lenient in this regard. In the Hanbali madhab, small deviation is acceptable. And how do you define small deviation? Small deviation, the way we should define, based on the hadith of the Prophet, مَا بَيْنَ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ قِبْلَةٌ. Even if this hadith is not authenticated, it is the statement of many Sahaba, and the action, Ibn Qudamah says, of all the Sahaba. That this was the spirit of their action. And this statement is traceable to many Sahaba, even if it is not traceable all the way to the Prophet. But some of the scholars consider it authentically traceable to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. مَا بَيْنَ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ قِبْلَةٌ. So if the four cardinal directions, that is north, south, east, and west, if you say that each one of those cardinal directions occupies 90 degrees out of the 360 degrees, then do you know what that means? Means that if I am praying towards the east, I have basically flexibility of 45 degrees towards the right or the left, towards the north or the south. Flexibility of 45 degrees. If I go beyond the 45 degrees, I'm praying towards the east. This is east, east, east. But if I pray like this, well, this is more north than east. So this would be considered praying towards the north, not the east. So that is beyond the 45 degrees. So make the pi, give every one of the four cardinal directions, because the Prophet was talking about cardinal directions. مَا بَيْنَ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ قِبْلَةٌ. You face the south, as long as you're not facing the east or west, you're good. You're facing the Qibla. So each one of the cardinal directions takes 90 degrees, and then you divide this like this. So a deviation of 45, 45, 45, 45 would be acceptable. Does this mean when we build the masjid, that we build the masjid tilted? No. You want to hit the Kaaba, right? Yes, you do want to hit the Kaaba. Let us say for some reason it was inconvenient for us and we had a tilt of 7 degrees. That's fine. That's a very slight tilt. So when people came here and talked about the lines in this masjid, and it is different compasses. So everybody brings their compass and makes a big deal over like 5 or 6 degrees. That is not really our religion. This is just superstitious, ritualism. That is not our religion. So different compasses are showing some compasses are showing that this direction is correct. Some other compasses are showing like deviating by 5, 6, 7, 8 degrees. That is fine. And in this case, you don't need to create any fitna. And in this case also, the people who pray with a little tilt to the south or a little tilt to the north, they're fine. Why are they disagreeing? And who's disagreeing? We like to think that only the Ahbash are disagreeing. And Ahbash, that particular sect is known to you. But some other people may disagree. It does not, you don't have to be Ahbash to disagree. Because many people have this, they just can't not look at the flat map. But keep in mind that the flat map is basically our skewed awareness of the universe. Some people are doubting that this flat map is, there are lots of doubt about the map that we study in school, that it is all messed up and all disproportionate. And particularly if you watch about, how Africa is made smaller than what it is and so on. But anyway, I'm not going to get into this discussion, but what I'm trying to say is this is your contemporary awareness. This flat map did not exist 200 years ago. The fact that you're seeing on the flat map, okay, let's say that this is Europe here. Let's say that this is Asia. Let's say that this is South. This is Panama, the Canal. You have to be exact here. But anyway, this is the famous Gulf, Persian or Arab, I don't know what. And this is the Kaaba. So yes, on the flat map it is southeast. It looks southeast. On the flat map it looks southeast. So some people will, that's fine, it's a matter of ijtihad. But then when you look at the globe, the true representation of Earth, the globe, the Earth is a globe. Maybe not a perfect globe, but it, for all practical purposes, it is a globe. It is, a sphere. It is rounded. So if you look at the globe, the shortest distance between here and the Kaaba will be going north. Will be like you cannot replicate this on the flat map because it will look tilted. But if you look at if there is a globe now, the shortest distance will be going towards the north. Now, some people cannot really comprehend this, and they tell you it's not about the shortest distance. It is about your directions. But it is about the shortest distance. How do you define the direction of the Kaaba in relation to you if you don't define it by the shortest distance to the Kaaba, the shortest line that connects you to the Kaaba? Having said that, northeast may sound more scientific, but southeast is a valid ijtihad. And if someone is praying to the southeast and I walk into their masjid and I pray behind them, I will not repeat my prayer because it is a matter of ijtihad. And at the end of the day, it is a slight tilt to the south or a slight tilt to the north. Imam Ahmad said, I would like him to make, still talking about from Medina to Mecca, he said like, uhib, that he puts it in his middle, in the middle, the direction in the middle between the west and the east. But he said as long as he's not facing the east or facing the west, his salah is complete, valid, he does not need to repeat it. And Ibn Rajab reported this from Imam Ahmad in Fath al-Bari, which is another Fath al-Bari by Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali. So you want to be flexible about this concept, that we are trying to face the direction of the Kaaba. Now, if you are trying to pray for yourself, or we're building the masjid and we are trying to hit the Kaaba itself as much as we can. Try and be, careful, hit the Kaaba itself as much as we can. A little bit of deviation for convenience, for anything, for the fact that the masjid is already built, for any purpose, we have room basically of flexibility here, up to 45 degrees to the right or the left. Then he said, Imam Qudamah rahimahullah said, وَإِنْ خَفِيَتِ الْقِبْلَةِ فِي الْحَضَرِ سأل واستدل بمحاريب المسلمين فإن أخطأ فعليه الإعادة. If the Qibla is unknown to him while in town or in a town, he must ask, and he may take for a clue the direction of the mihrabs, prayer niches in the mosques of the Muslims. If he errs, if he makes a mistake, then he must make up for it. He must make up for it. So he does not allow you to make a mistake in a town. He will allow you to make a mistake if you're traveling. He will not allow you to make a mistake if you're in town. Why? Because he says the least that you could have done is to walk to a masjid and figure out the direction of the mihrab. He's talking about which towns? His towns, not our towns. Because in our towns, you may be clueless forever. It may be hard to identify the direction of the Qibla. So nowadays we have compasses on your iPhones or your Galaxy 8 now. So it's to be fair also. But you have those compasses, they are readily available. But if you don't have one, and you're completely clueless, and you make a mistake, then it is consistent with their thought process. Keep in mind that the letter of the scholars is not a revelation, but you want to figure out the thought process of the scholars. The thought process is not to distinguish between in town and out of town just because of the town, the word town. He wants to say that if you are in town and you made a mistake, it is likely that you were negligent because you did not do your best. You should have been able to figure it out. In a Muslim town, at every corner you will find the masjid, you will find the mihrab, you will find the little musalla that shows the direction of the Kaaba. You will find someone to ask. You'll just be able to figure it out. In our towns, if you make a mistake, you do not need to repeat it. After you have made ijtihad and you did your best, you don't need to repeat it. Yes?
What about using the sun? He doesn't require the traveler to just figure it out based on the.
What?
We have compasses on the phone. Then
if it is a gloomy day, if it is at night, if the person is blind, if there are many cases in which you cannot use the sun. But yes, you want to try to use the sun. Or if the person is mentally just unable to figure out directions, and some people are. So any of these cases, you want to do your best and having done your best. By the way, using the sun may be helpful here because there are 2 days where the sun is completely perpendicular on the Kaaba. So if from anywhere in the world at this moment when the sun is completely perpendicular on the Kaaba, from anywhere in the world, if you look at the sun, you will be facing the Qibla. But it is a particular time, down to the second, down to the minute. But within that time, a few minutes, the sun will be completely perpendicular in the Kaaba. Looking at the sun from anywhere in the world, you will be facing the Qibla. We can't do this here in America because it would be night for us on those 2 days. But There are 2 other days when the sun is perpendicular on the opposite side of the earth. So if you look at the sun, you're looking directly away from the Qibla. So all you need to do, and that we can do in America. November, I think, is the first time it's coming up, and May it's coming up. But if you want to do this, I could give you the exact time. You would be looking at the sun, and then all you need to do is 180 degrees, and this will be your Qibla. So if you, that could be a helpful way to settle that sort of dispute. But at the end of the day, it may not settle it, because that is scientific also. You know, who told you the sun is perpendicular? What? وإن خفيت في السفر اجتهد وصلى ولا إعادة عليه. If it is unknown to him while traveling, he should do his best to figure it out and pray. And he does not have to make up for it if he made a mistake, if he erred. Okay, so that is applicable not only to the traveler, but also to a person who is in a non-Muslim town where he can't find masajid and he can't find people to ask. That you do your best in trying to figure it out, and then you will be exempt from a makeup if you made a mistake. Now, how did they used to identify the Qibla aside from the sun? By the stars and the wind. But the wind is very inaccurate, to be honest with you. But they had their own way of figuring out. These are people who lived in the desert. Figuring out direction was extremely important for them. You know, it is a matter of life and death. You know, walking through the desert, if you're clueless, it's a matter of life and death. So they were even able to tell direction from the winds. They know which wind blows from which side at which time, and they can tell. So these are the 3 methods they used: sun, stars, wind. Wind would be in the least accurate. We have less, you know, we have the compass, and if we don't have the compass, we have the sun. Some of us may have some idea about the stars, some may not. But do you have some idea? Does anyone here know the Great Dipper and the Small Dipper? Yeah. Anyway, but if you want, they consider this to be al-Muwaffaq, by the way, for people who can comprehend it. They consider this to be obligatory science for people who can comprehend it, to be able to tell directions, because it is vital for telling the Qibla. Then Imam Qudamah said, وَإِنْ اخْتَلَفَ مُجْتَهِدَانْ لَمْ يَتَّبِعْ أَحَدُهُمَا صَاحِبَهُ. If 2 individuals capable of reasoning disagree, they need not follow each other. Or they should not follow each other. They should not follow each other. If we disagree on the direction of the Qibla, we don't pray together. Because we either agree and pray to the same direction, but I can be praying like this and you praying like this, and it doesn't work. So we cannot pray together. Then we don't follow each other, and everybody prays alone if we don't agree on the direction of the Qibla. And if you cannot really believe my ijtihad, then it is not like ijtihad in fiqh, where there is flexibility, where Imam Ahmad prayed, you know, not Imam Ahmad, but Harun al-Rashid prayed behind Imam Malik after hijama and so on, even though, and Abu Yusuf prayed with them, even though according to Abu Yusuf, Abu Yusuf prayed behind Harun al-Rashid after making hijama, and according to Abu Yusuf, Harun al-Rashid did not have wudu, but he did not have wudu in his book, but he had wudu in Imam Malik's book, therefore he showed the expected leniency here. But this, Imam al-Qudamah says, this is different. This is different, because here this is not just a matter of fiqh and a matter of different opinions and إجماعهم حجة قاطعة واختلافهم رحمة واسعة. Their agreement is decisive proof and their disagreement is rahmah, is mercy from Allah, because whichever one of them you follow, you will be safe. But he's saying that this is different. If you really believe that the Qibla is this way, and someone is telling you it is that way, you can't really follow that. But then, if one of you is more competent, then you could follow them.
In regards to the Qibla when you're traveling, if you find like a Muslims praying in a certain direction while you're traveling in the airport, is it incumbent upon you to also look to make sure that is the Qibla, or can you just go off of their reasoning for their ijtihad?
If you find them praying, you could follow them. But it would be better if you ask them, about the method of determination, if they really figured it, if they were able to figure it out, because they could be using concessions, or they could be sort of very flexible. Nowadays, some people are very flexible. Like I know some of my relatives who take the concept of flexibility in the deen to an extent that's a little bit uncomfortable. And they're Muslim, and it is just, yeah. Anyway. But certainly you should believe a Muslim unless they are fasiq. If they are fasiq, should you believe them in Qibla or not? That's the disagreement. If you visit someone who is fasiq in their home and they tell you this is the Qibla, should you accept it or not? They disagree. But they say, but I would recommend for you to accept it if they tell you which way to pray. Sometimes people don't even pray and they show you the Qibla in their home. And so the scholars disagreed. Could you really take their ijtihad if they are fasiq, ijtihad about the Qibla? And I believe that you should accept their ijtihad, although it's a disagreement. وإن اختلف مجتهد. Okay, the next one, ويتبع الأعمى والعامي أوثقهما في نفسه. A blind individual or a lay person must follow the more trustworthy in his thinking. Must follow the more trustworthy in his thinking. Now, they say that this is in the madhab a little bit strange, because in the madhab, in the Hanbali madhab, if two muftis disagree, you could follow whichever one you want, not the more trustworthy. Certainly Ibn al-Qayyim, gives a beautiful, although he's Hanbali, but there is a disagreement within the madhab. The authorized position in the madhab is that you could take whichever one you want. But Ibn al-Qayyim says that you would not do this with two physicians. Like if you're sick and people point out two physicians to you, you will ask about the more competent physician to go to them so that you could take their consult concerning your physical health, and your spiritual health is more important, so you should really try to look for trustworthiness, and you should look for the more trustworthy mufti, the more competent and more trustworthy mufti. But in the madhab, they say, in the authorized view of the madhab, they say that when two muftis disagree, you may take whichever fatwa. They don't apply this to the Qibla, because in the Qibla, you need to follow the more trustworthy one. You need to follow the more trustworthy one, because it is not about fiqhi disagreement, it is about direction. It is either this or that. So it cannot be both. So you need to follow the more trustworthy one. More trustworthy here means what? Means what? Yeah, the more competent in terms of, you know, the whatever sciences needed for designation of the direction of the Qibla. That is not the greater faqih. In fact, some of the scholars get irritated when they are asked about this question. You know, and one of the mashayikh, they wrote him to yastaftuna, who they sought his fatwa. So he wrote back to them and he said, "You're writing to the wrong person. That's it. End." Because you know, this is about figuring out the direction of the Qibla, not a religious question. Okay, then moving on to the last of the 6 prerequisites. First one is ritual purity, al-wudu, al-tahara min al-hadath. Second one was commencement of time, al-waqt, dukhul al-waqt. Third one was covering the awra, covering your nakedness, satrul awra. Fourth one was ijtinab al-najasa, avoiding physical impurity, not ritual impurity, physical impurity on your garment, your body, your place of prostration. Fifth one is facing the Qibla. Last one is a Niyyah. Why was it last one when it should have been the first one? Because in the Hanbali madhab, they want it to be fresh. They do not want it to accompany, they do not require that your Niyyah accompany your takbir. Who requires your Niyyah accompany your takbir? Shafi'is. Because for the Shafi'is, Niyyah is a pillar, rukn. You know, it's part of the prayer, not a prerequisite. It's one of the pillars of the prayer. So they want it to accompany the takbir. The Hanbali, they accept istishab al-Niyyah, presumption of continuity of the Niyyah. To presume continuity of the Niyyah unless you invalidate it. So if you make wudu, intending to pray dhuhr, and then walk to your bedroom, and then say Allahu Akbar, without invoking the Niyyah while you're saying Allahu Akbar, you're okay, you're fine in the Hanbali method. But the Shafi'is would want you to invoke the Niyyah while you're saying Allahu Akbar. The problem in this, and in all honesty, you know, I was Shafi'i before I became Hanbali, and I consider Imam Ahmad to be the most worthy of the students of Imam Shafi'i, but I still consider him a student of Imam Shafi'i. He considers himself to be. But this particular position in the Shafi'i madhab, in my experience as a consultant, is like a really burdensome opinion, because it causes so much obsessiveness to people. You know, to invoke the Niyyah at the time of takbir, and people wait and, you know, trying to get the Niyyah and bring it to their heart, bring it to the foot. It causes a lot of obsessiveness. Imam ibn Qudamah said, الشرط السادس النية للصلاة بعينها. Sixth is the intention to perform the particular prayer. Why did he say the particular prayer? Because it's not like you're just going to pray. You're going to pray dhuhr. Today is dhuhr, not any dhuhr. Today is dhuhr. So if you have other dhuhrs from before, you want to be clear whether this is the makeup dhuhr or this is today's dhuhr. But beyond this, beyond the actual prayer, the Hanbalis do not ask you to invoke the niyyah of whether this is qada or ada, in time or not in time. They don't ask you to invoke the niyyah whether you will pray to Allah or to somebody else. It is presumed that you will pray to Allah. They would, in the authorized view of the madhab, consider it mustahab to invoke and even to utter usalli lillah. But you know, this is controversial within the madhab. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah considers it a bid'ah. He says none of the Prophet and none of the Sahaba was ever reported to have uttered the niyyah of the prayer. But the authorized view of the madhab is that utterance is preferred, not required. But they do not require you to invoke the niyyah of this being qada or ada in time or out of time, this being 4 rak'ahs or 2 rak'ahs, this being to Allah or not to Allah. All of these additions they don't require. All you need to invoke, not while you're saying Allahu Akbar, but before the prayer. But it should be fresh, meaning it's not like, a couple of hours ago I intended to pray. It should be fresh. All they need you to invoke is that I am praying today's Asr, or I am going to pray today's Asr, and that's it. And Niyyah al-Salah bi'ayniha, intention to perform the particular prayer. What if someone prayed Dhuhr and he thought it was in time and he intended to pray it in time and it was out of time? Will it count? Yes. Vice versa, will count. He prayed it, he thought that the time of Dhuhr is out and he prayed it qada out of time and it ended up being that it was in time. Will it count? Yes, it will count because he intended to pray the Dhuhr of the Jum'ah, the 22nd of Muharram. So as long as he intended the very particular prayer, then it should be fine. ويجوز تقديمها على التكبير بالزمن اليسير إذا لم يفسخها. ويجوز تقديمها على التكبير بالزمن اليسير إذا لم يفسخها. It may be made shortly before the takbir as long as he has not annulled it. As long as he has not annulled it. الزمن اليسير, they did not define what الزمن اليسير is, but it is to some extent subjective. الزمن اليسير where you could say it is impossible that, from there to here I actually. And keep in mind that the niyyah is mahalluha al-qalb. Then the seat of the niyyah is al-qalb, is the heart. So if you walk into the masjid to pray the Aisha prayer and you intended to go out and you want to pray the Aisha prayer and on your way you were still cognizant that you want to pray the Aisha prayer, but shortly before you got to the masjid, حصل لك ذهول عنها, you became distracted. It's not like you annulled it. You just became distracted. And you walked into the masjid and you found them praying and you just got into the prayer. It's Aisha. You're still Aisha. As long as you did not invalidate it, you did not annul it. You annul the niyyah by 2 things. You annul the niyyah by 2 things. Apostasy and active annulment of the niyyah. That's it. These are the 2 things that will annul or invalidate your niyyah. That's it, alhamdulillah. We finished this chapter on the shurut sahhat al-salah, the conditions of the validity of the prayer. And we have 6 minutes, so we can take a question or 2, and then we will leave at 10 o'clock exactly. We'll leave time for people who want to leave. Yes?
Changing the niyyah, like you come and you realize this is Maghrib, so can you change within the salah? And what are the conditions?
Changing the niyyah within the salah. Good question. Changing the niyyah within the salah. So I got into the dhuhr and I figured out it is not dhuhr, I must pray asr. Can you change it? Absolutely not. You can't change it from fard to fard. You have to have the niyyah for the fard from the beginning. Clear? Okay. I got into dhuhr and I figured out it is not time for dhuhr yet, and I converted it into sunnah. Nafl. Supererogatory. Can I do this? Yes, I can. I can convert from the higher to the lower. I cannot convert equals, and I cannot convert from the lower to the higher. I cannot convert a sunnah into a fard. I cannot convert a fard into a fard. I can convert a fard into a sunnah. Can you convert sunnah to a sunnah? Yes, you could convert among the sunnahs because it is not required. So yes, these are equals, but yeah. You intended to pray Dhuhr and then you freshened up your Niyyah? Intended Asr? Oh, it's invalid. It is, you annulled the first Niyyah. But you annulled the first Niyyah. You invalidated your first Niyyah. You are intending Dhuhr and then at the time of the Salah you say, I'll pray Asr. You say to yourself, whether in your heart or with like sort of in your mouth utterance, but I prefer in your heart. If you invoke it in your heart that I'll pray Asr now, then that is annulment of the first Niyyah. Another question that relates to the fard and the nafl. Can you pray fard behind someone who's praying nafl?
Not
Okay, no, according to the Hanafis, Malikis, and the authorized view in the Hanbali madhab. According to one view in the Hanbali madhab, and that's the madhab of Imam Shafi'i, it is permissible. What did Imam Shafi'i use for this? And he was followed by some Hanbalis. What did he use for this? He used the hadith of Mu'adh, where he used to pray Aisha with the Prophet ﷺ, and then go lead his people in Aisha prayer. As a leader, he was praying nafli because he had already prayed his Aisha with the Prophet ﷺ, so he was praying nafli. It is hard to find something to basically rebuttal this hadith, but certainly the scholars had their own ways of rebutting the hadith. Tahawi reported some report from the Prophet ﷺ where he said it was, but it's not traceable to the Prophet ﷺ authentically, that he said you either pray with me or you pray with them. What is traceable to the Prophet ﷺ is that he commanded him to lighten up the prayer, to make it lighter, to make it shorter. So that is, so in this case, even though the hadith on the side of Imam Shafi'i is a pretty strong evidence on the side of Imam Shafi'i, I prefer that if you will pray a second Jum'ah, you allow someone else to lead, because you have Hanafis, Malikis, and Hanbalis behind you who may be uncomfortable with this, who may not consider this to be valid, praying Jum'ah behind someone who's praying Nafl. So just avoid contention, and it's very easy. Grab someone else from this Jama'ah to lead, you avoid the contention. But, theoretically speaking, the Imam Shafi'i has a very strong hadith on his side. Yes. Muhammad.
What's the logic behind those who permit changing the Niyyah mid-prayer?
Changing the Niyyah mid-prayer?
Like downgrading from Fard to Sunnah, for example.
It is makruh in the madhab to downgrade from Fard to Sunnah for no reason. It is prevented in the madhab to downgrade from Fard to Sunnah if you don't have time to pray the Fard before the next prayer. Forbidden. It is makruh in the madhab to downgrade from Fard to Sunnah for no valid reason. It is permissible in the madhab, it could be mustahab to downgrade from Fard to Sunnah for a good reason. Let us say you started your Asr prayer and they made Iqamah for Asr. Or even if you're not in the masjid, you started Asr prayer and a few people came by and then they made their own Iqamah for Asr. And you desire to pray Jama'ah with them. You downgrade it, and you either quickly, if you're outside of the masjid, you could quickly finish it, but if you're in the masjid, you come out of it to join the Jama'ah of the masjid. But here in this case, downgrading, whether you will carry on with it or you will interrupt it, even if you will interrupt it, you still want to downgrade it, so you're not interrupting Asr, you're interrupting Sunnah. So you got into Asr and they made Iqamah. You downgraded to Sunnah and then you come out of it. You came out in this case of a Sunnah, not of a Faridah. But there could be other reasons why you want to downgrade it. Let's say you got into Asr and your mother called you. You downgraded to a Sunnah, you quickly finish it, and you come out of it. if you desire to do that, if you feel that it is urgent.
I meant the logic behind it being permissible. Like the idea is that you need the intention to start the prayer. So if I change my intention, the newly intended prayer is missing takbiratul ihram.
They said that الأدنى يدخل في الأعلى. It is basically that the lower يدخل في الأعلى. Okay, so the higher, which is the fard, whatever is underneath it goes into the niyyah of the fard. And they consider it to not be qabih to switch from the higher to the lower for a reason. They consider it to be makruh to switch for no reason. But if you have a reason, you wanted to finish the prayer faster for some reason, convert it into sunnah, finish it faster, and then take time to do your fard later on. That's as far as I can tell. Yes. I'm sorry, sister.
Just if you prayed before the time and you said that it's valid, but if someone tells you, do you have to repeat it?
If you pray before the time?
Like you prayed Dhuhr before the time and you made an intention. Now you said it was valid?
No. You prayed Dhuhr before the time of Asr. You prayed Dhuhr in the time of Dhuhr. You thought that it's out of the time of Dhuhr. You thought that Asr is in. And then you prayed Dhuhr, and then you prayed Dhuhr as makeup. You know?
But not
Now,
the time of Dhuhr, right?
and it turned out that you actually prayed in time. Do you need to repeat it? No, because you prayed the Dhuhr of the 22nd of Muharram. You intended to pray the Dhuhr of the 22nd of Muharram. As long as you made that intention, it doesn't matter what other sort of subsidiary, secondary intentions you made. Is this makeup or in time, out of time, you know, it doesn't matter. Yes?
Two questions. The first one is, whatever nullifies your niyyah, can you make another niyyah after canceling the first one? Whatever
Yeah.
the first one?
If you nullify your niyyah, renew your niyyah, freshen up your niyyah, yes.
Okay, and the second one is, if you have missed prayers for a good period of time of your life, are you allowed to make it up? And if so, how do you track it?
Missed prayers for a long period of your life, you know, we would say that if it is doable, please do make them up. If it is not doable, make more sunnah prayers to make up as much as possible for those missed prayers. But according to the Hanafis, Malikis, and Shafi'is, you do need to make them up.
So if you're making it up, are you making it up during the time of Fajr, for example, or all as possible, as many Fajrs are you supposed to pray? Are you supposed to pay them, combine them together, or separate them?
Yeah, that would be the only practical way to do it.
So during the time of each.
Yes. But you do not have to limit it within the time. Like you could basically continue to pray more and more and more until Dhuhr to make up. You don't have to, but I'm talking about this is the only practical way of doing it is to ask people to pray every day 2 or 3 Fajrs, 2 or 3 Dhuhrs, practically speaking. But you don't need to, because the makeup is there. All the time is time for makeup. I don't know who's first. Yeah.
You were talking about changing the niyyah, but if we speak about changing the niyyah from the nafil mutlaq to sunnah musabbada, is going from lower to higher. Is that also still acceptable? Like I can doing nafil mutlaq, like sunnah break, any nafil in the salah. Then I want to change my niyyah.
No, that would be considered going from the lower to the higher.
And this is invalid the salah. If you change your niyyah inside.
No, it will continue to be a nafil. It will not invalidate it. If you switch your niyyah from dhuhr to asr, it will go into a nafil mode. If you continue it, it will count for you as a nafil.
No, but I came to the salah, I'm doing a regular nafil, then I want to change my niyyah to tahiyyat al-masjid or sunnah or dhuhr.
Tahiyyat al-masjid is not nafil, it is not, what is it, muayyan.
What about during?
Yeah, no, you can't do that.
You can't.
Yeah,
So this is going from lower to higher.
this is going from lower to higher. The identifiable, or what would you call muayyan? So, specific, yeah. You don't go to the specific sunnah. You would switch from nafla to nafl. Random nafla to random nafl. But not from random nafl to a specific nafl. Yes?
When I convert my niyyah, so what about the units of the prayers? For example, I'm praying 4 rakat of the Zohar, and I came to know that Jamaat is basically started. So can I convert my 4 rakat to the 2 rakat, and then maybe just join them for the first salah? Like I came to the masjid, I started 4 rakat for the first Zohar, and I came to know that people are making Jamaat. So now I'm changing my niyyah from the first sunnah. So what about the units? Like I convert that 4 rakat or the first into the
Yes.
2 rakat sunnah?
You would be able to convert it, to shorten it, yes. And would count as 2.
Can you combine niyyahs, like you have the 2 sunnah for entering the masjid and 2 after the wudu? Can you combine them both with 2 rak'ah instead of 2 and 2?
Yeah, 2 sunnah for entering the masjid and 2 sunnah for wudu.
2 sunnah afterwards?
You could combine as many as you want. Yeah.
Can you add intentions onto your...
Fard, certainly not.
No, I'm talking like the nafil.
Sunnahs, yes.
The nafil.
Yes.
So for example, during the prayer, you started with Tahiyyat al-Masjid, but you realized you didn't pray Duha yet, or you forgot to make the niyyah for the...
So sunnah of wudu, tahiyyat al-masjid, salat al-istikhara, sunnah of wudu, tahiyyat al-masjid, salat al-istikhara, salat al-duha, adhan. You could have 5, 6 niyyahs in one prayer, but not 2 specific ones. Like you can't make up for the sunnah before dhuhr with the sunnah after dhuhr.
So what about adding the niyyah during the salah? So you realize you forgot to make the niyyah before the salah, you're praying Tahiyyat al-Masjid and you say, oh, it's Duha time, I haven't prayed Duha yet. Can you add that niyyah during the salah? Or should you pray 2 extra after you're done?
I didn't read anything from the scholars about adding the niyyahs. Certainly conversion is certainly allowable, but I did not read something about adding. Therefore, I'll say I don't know.
We're in a day and age of freebies on the side.
No, it's like you want to maximize. If you, that's fine, but
Sheikh, are you saying you can combine, okay, you can use 2 rakats but combine the niyyahs?
yes. So you just made like if you consider there's like a sunnah for wudu, like Bilal used to do, and then sunnah for tahiyyat al-masjid, and then sunnah for salat al-duha, and you also want to make istikhara, so you want to pray 2 rakats for istikhara, and you want whatever else. You could combine all of those in 2 rakats because they are not mutually exclusive. They are not. But when you have specific ratib, routine, sunnahs, you can't combine those.
For the scholars who say that you need to make up the prayers that you've missed for a long period of time, do any of them make it a condition that you have to pray them in order, meaning Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha? Like you cannot pray 3 Fajrs in a row, you have to pray Dhuhr. You can. So the scholars
Yes.
do that, and also do your voluntary prayers count in terms of reward if you still have the qada? Do you do your voluntary prayers, are they counting in terms of reward if you still have qada?
Yeah, so the first question whether you can, whatever is suggested to be the practical way is considered by the majority to not be acceptable. The practical way I suggest that is considered by the majority to not be acceptable because you want to basically maintain the order of the prayers that you missed. So you have to pray Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. But if someone missed like 7 or 8 years of prayers and they have to multiply this, if he wants to go by to be safe according to the majority, he does need to do this consistently, in this order, Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, until he's done. And he should give this precedence over the voluntary prayers. So he will be doing the make-up prayers until every time he prays, he will be doing the make-up prayers. It's very taxing. Yes?
When it comes to making up prayers, is there any intention that needs to be anything more specific than just is it a make-up prayer? Like, does it have to be like, is it a make-up prayer for this day? Or is it just, is it a make-up prayer?
The make-up prayer, you cannot remember those days. The idea, if you missed 7 years of prayer, how could you say, this is the prayer of, Muharram the 2nd, 1411. This is the prayer. It is not doable. So you will be basically either, to be safe according to the majority, you do what Muhammad said. You pray Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, Fajr, Dhuhr. Keep on doing this until you're done. So you estimate how many prayers. 5 times 300 and whatever, 50 days. That is, I don't know how. Yeah, so maybe like 10,000 prayers. So 2,000 of each. You will not do them, if you want to be safe according to the majority, you will do them Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, until you're done. If you want the more practical solution is to pray 3 Fajrs every day and count them from whatever you have missed, then that would be okay. If you want the easiest option, which is the Hanbali option, they tell you that you since you came back to Islam, welcome back. Al-Islam yajubu ma qablahu. Islam wipes out all that which happened before it. Then you start anew, and then all you need to do, if you want to do anything, is pray more sunnah prayers to catch up. No, going to Hajj is acceptable because it's a different type of act of worship.
No, like wipe out. So you misprayed for 7 years, and then you go to Hajj, come back after
What? No, the idea here is, according to the Hanafis, Malikis, and Shafi'is, it will wipe out the sins. It will not wipe out the liability. You're still liable. You still owe them. But your sin is forgiven for missing the prayers. But you owe the prayers to Allah. قل قولي هذا استغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك.